Welcome to Run the Play. Here's your host, Ricky Covington.
Happy Thursday and welcome to another episode of Run the Play. I'm Jordan Fisher, and because Rick could not be here today, I'll be your host. To my left is Alec Bradley, and in the control room is Tristan White. On today's show, we'll discuss tonight's Thursday night football matchup, the new college football playoff rankings, some of the latest news in the NBA, as well as some college basketball. But starting with Thursday night football, tonight the 4-4 Buffalo Bills and Rex Ryan will visit Ryan's former team, the 5-3 New York Jets, for a pivotal AFC East matchup that could have playoff implications. Now, Rex Ryan announced that former Jets linebacker Ike Enemkpali will be a captain for the Bills. Enemkpali famously punched Jets quarterback Geno Smith in the jaw before the season during a locker room confrontation. So, Alec, how do you feel about what Rex Ryan is doing here with Enemkpali as the captain?
Well, I think Rex Ryan making Enemkpali the captain is just really Rex Ryan-like, just to really rub it in their face. I mean, initially, when Enemkpali got cut, Rex Ryan was the first guy to say, he swept him up right off the waiver wire. So I'm not surprised Rex is doing this. It's just kind of get under their skin and get into their head right before, they kick off. So it could work out great. The Jets could fold, what is Rex got up his sleeve, all this other stuff. Or, it could anger the Jets and they come out with, like hellfire and brimstone and just annihilate the Bills. So, either or, this is a key AFC East matchup. It's going to decide pretty much second place in that division because no one's catching the Patriots at this point. So whatever team gets this win, picks up a little momentum, could potentially be a wild card and be seeing January football.
And certainly I think the Bills are the team that really need to win out of this game more than so far the Jets because of the records. Because if the Jets win, they'll be 6-3, and the Bills will be then 4-5 and likely out of that race. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen Rex Ryan do something to this standard. He's been sitting on all kinds of captains this year that haven't made sense. He sent out Richie Incognito earlier this year. I think he sent out their punter for one of the first games. So this is certainly something Rex Ryan has done throughout the year. Do you think I know you said they want to try to get in the head of the Jets, but do you think there's actually any kind of substance to like the mind games that Rex Ryan's trying to play right now?
I think it's just him having free reign and, enjoying coaching again because up in New York, he was getting kind of stale. The same type of stuff he was doing was getting old. So, he's out in Buffalo now. The fan base seems to be rejuvenated and everything. And, I think it's just him trying to get people and his team and players up for this key matchup. So I think it's a good idea, but at the same time, it could easily come back and bite him.
Certainly. And, I think this is going to be a good game anyways. It's like strength on strength. They each have good defenses. Now, a big loss in that game was Nick Mangold. He's going to be out for a couple weeks with an injury. I was actually listening to the radio the other day, and I think it was ESPN Radio, on Mike and Mike, they were talking about how when Mangold's on the field, when they run in between the tackles, they average 3.7 yards per carry. When he's not on the field, the Jets only average 2.2 yards per carry. The Bills have a pretty good defensive line there too, so that's something to watch out for. Tristan, what are your thoughts as far as Rex Ryan and if his mind games are actually going to work in this one, or if they can even get the win?
Okay, so Rex Ryan to me is one of those coaches who just does things to do them. If anything, I can compare him to the Donald Trump of the NFL coaching world.
That's a good comparison.
Yeah, because he's just kind of that guy right now, and I think it's a great move to make this guy the captain. Because is Geno Smith going to end up going out there for the coin toss?
I don't know, but I want him to because I think it'd be fantastic.
Amazing. That would be hilarious to see. It's like, hey man, what's up?
Yeah, I'd say just send both of them out there and let them stare at each other.
Yeah, you still don't have my money.
Yeah, exactly.
You ready for it? But I don't know if it's going to have any kind of impact on the game whatsoever. It's just one of those funny things. I don't even want to call it a mind game. I think it's just humor. I think it's just Rex Ryan being Rex Ryan, and he's just having fun with it.
Well, and then now let's get into the actual storyline of the game, and that's the football on the field. Obviously, as I said a little bit, it's pretty much strength on strength. They're almost identical teams. They really like to run the football, like to play defense. No surprise given the roster makeup. Who do you see getting this win in this game?
I'm honestly going to go with the Buffalo Bills in this game. I think right now, they have Tyrod Taylor. He's coming back healthy now. LaShawn McCoy and Carlos Williams are both healthy now. They both went over 100 yards last week against the Dolphins. I don't see why that doesn't stop, especially because, I just think, when that offense gets going, they can be very potent, not only on the ground but in the air with Sammy Watkins connecting with Tyrod Taylor. And you also have Robert Woods as well. And I just don't think, even if you want to get into a shootout kind of with those two stingy defenses, the Jets offense I just don't think can keep up with the Bills offense at all. So I would say probably Bills 21, Jets 14.
I think it's going to be a very close game, kind of like what you talked about there. I'm kind of torn between the two. They each have upside. You mentioned Sammy Watkins, but he's going to draw Revis Island, and that's going to be a very tough matchup. I know Revis got torched last week by Allen Robinson, had over 120 yards receiving. I don't think that happens in back-to-back weeks, especially on a short week whenever, Tyrod Taylor's just coming back and getting healthy. Watkins really hasn't been his healthiest at all this year, although he did have a big game last week against Miami. But I do look for Robert Woods. Robert Woods is someone that I am looking at to have a big impact for the Bills. I think that they're going to try to get the ground game running and then set up the play action, allow Tyrod Taylor to make plays with his feet, and then find Robert Woods from there. However, I also like the receiving core that New York has. Don't count out Fitzmagic now. All right, the bearded wonder boy, Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's one of the smarter quarterbacks in the league, and he's certainly been good to this point. And when you have Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker, and now Devin Smith is starting to make a little bit of an appearance, if they can get Chris Ivy rolling on the ground, that Jets offense is going to be pretty hard to stop. I think I might lean like 2017 in favor of the Jets, because I think as much as Rex is trying to do to get get in the head of the Bills or the Jets, I don't think it's going to pay off. I think it's actually going to backfire, and I think the Jets are going to come out, as you said, fired up and ready to make a statement. Tristan, what are your thoughts on tonight's game?
I think it's definitely going to be a win for the Bills, but a couple of things. As of yesterday, LaShawn McCoy was listed as probable. I have him on my fantasy team. Obviously, I want him to play, but with a shoulder injury like that and with how much a running back goes down, he might not want to drop his shoulder as much, just a personal thing he might not want to do. Plus, left tackle and backup left tackle are both out for the Bills this week, so a little bit of offensive line issues that could affect the running game as well. Regardless, let's say Bills 24, Jets 14. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't really care about the game anyways. The Bills and the freaking Jets. I don't care.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll be the only one on the side of the Jets, and I'll take Revis Island and company, because I think that they'll certainly pull it off. But
that
we'll
defense is nice. The defense is nice, so it'll be kind of tough. But with McCoy in there, I just don't see any way that. Revis isn't going to stop McCoy. He's all the way back in the backfield.
That's true. Both sides certainly have good defense.
Oh, yeah.
Both sides certainly have playmakers. The Jets have better playmakers in the receiving game, in my opinion. And the Bills have better running backs because you have McCoy and Carlos Williams, who is really, they combined for over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns last week. So it's a pretty good day on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
So now switching gears to the college level. New college football playoff rankings were announced after Tuesday's show, and there was only one real change to the top 4, and that was Notre Dame being slotted in at that 4th spot. I can see Tristan celebrating in the control room right now. So the top 4 currently are Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, and Notre Dame, with Iowa and Baylor in the 5th and 6th spots respectively, and currently out of the playoff. Tristan, as you can tell, you were very excited about Notre Dame.
Oh,
what are your
yeah.
thoughts on the current rankings?
I honestly think it's a little weird to have Notre Dame in there right now. I think there are a couple other teams that could sneak into that 4th spot. It is really early for these rankings. Ohio State at 3, I think, is right. Alabama at 2, Clemson at 1, fine. I'm happy for Notre Dame because my boy Sheldon Day is on that team. Went to elementary school and high school with the man, so I'm happy to see him prosper. I honestly think that Michigan State could end up pulling an Ohio State from last year and making their way into that 4th spot. By the time it's all said and done.
I think they could for sure. Michigan State's one of those teams. They've got a good stretch of games down the end. I believe they play both Michigan and Ohio State there in the last couple weeks, and then if they get to the Big Ten championship game, they'll have that game as well. But Iowa's certainly a team that a lot of people didn't pick preseason. They're sitting number 5, and judging by the look on your face, I don't think you're exactly agreeing with the fact that they're number 5 right now.
Colin Cowherd called Iowa a poser, they're like a poser at a nightclub.
Oh, my
It was
gosh.
a really weird comparison. Alec, go ahead, man.
Iowa, you can't, discount what they've done. They're 9-0. They're going out there, playing their game and winning. It's not convincing fashion, but a W is a W at the end. But I just don't see how, if anything, you have 2 Big Ten teams going into the playoffs, because Ohio State, barring some type of major setback, is going to go represent their side of the division in the Big Ten championship game. And Iowa's already clinched their division, so they've got the ticket going to the Big Ten championship game. The loser of that has to be out of the playoffs conversation. So, Iowa, that's a nice Cinderella story. They're pretty much the only Cinderella we have left right now this season. But I really see them folding, honestly. And if it's not against, a well-built team, it could be a trap game, before the Big Ten title game or something. So Iowa, I expect them to fall. I think the top 4, honestly, if they all went out, the college football committee knows, because if they all went out, you have 3 big names automatically: Ohio State, Alabama, and Notre Dame. Those people, the fans are going to come, and the haters are going to watch to see if they're going to lose or not. And then Clemson's just a dog at number 1 all year, so, and they look like a team that could also win a title. So I think the college football committee would be perfectly content if everybody just went out and the rankings stayed the same until early December when the official Final Four come out.
Well, and now last year at this point in time, there was a lot of discussion about the rankings because it was the first time ever, and there were, this team deserves to be in, that team doesn't deserve to be in, kind of like Florida State. Ohio State's kind of gotten that pass to a degree, like Florida State, but I do think Ohio State's a better team than Florida State was last year, especially at this point. But I agree with you. Iowa, I think right now is number 5 just for sheer recognition of having such a good season. I don't think they last. If they do end up going to the Big Ten Championship undefeated and beating Ohio State, I think you would have to put them in. But at the same time, also, I don't see them beating Ohio State. Ohio State's just such a better team. Or even if it was a Michigan or Michigan State that gets to the Big Ten Championship, I don't know if Iowa makes it in. But a couple teams to watch out for are Baylor and TCU because they have very tough schedules down the rest of the season, and then they'll have the Big 12 championship game where they'll likely get matched up with one another. And so certainly the winner of that game could be in the conversation as well. But I'm with you. If all 4 of the top teams went out and they all finish with the same record they have now, I think this is the most accurate you'll have, especially at this point in the year. There's still a few weeks left to play. But another big conversation has been Notre Dame's an independent. They'll only have 12 games versus everybody else having 13 because of conference championships. Does that hurt them in any way, shape, or form, even though they have such a tough schedule?
Honestly, I don't think it's going to hurt them at all. It's just for what they lack in the conference schedule. It's the name of Notre Dame that's going to bring in the money for college football. And I think college football and the NCAA knows that. That's why they in their mind wouldn't be risking it putting in an independent team into the college football playoff because the money that they're not going to get from a conference championship from Notre Dame, that's going to be easily made up if they do get in the playoffs because the fans are going to travel from all over across the world just to see them potentially win their first national title since, I believe, 1998.
1988, I believe.
1988,
actually. So, yeah, but I agree with you there. I think the committee will be like, okay, Notre Dame, big name. They've got Ohio State and Alabama. That's certainly an argument. But head coach Brian Kelly also argued that he'd put their schedule up against anybody else's in the country, and frankly, I think I have to agree with him. And so we'll have to see what happens. There's still a lot of football to be played and a lot of situations that could shake out, and you never know what's going to happen in college football. Okay. So now we do have to take a step away for a quick break, but when we come back, we'll discuss some of the biggest stories from around the NBA. So keep it right here for more Run the Play.
Newman Catholic Club provides students with great opportunities to meet new friends and grow in their faith through their weekly meetings, masses, and service projects.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it. It's a good way to get to know other people of the same faith and just to really have good, solid friendships.
Newman Catholic Club, where hearts speak to hearts.
Welcome back to RTP. Now, the NBA season is only a couple weeks old, but there have certainly been many storylines early in the season. The Warriors are looking better than ever. Kobe Bryant has been the exact opposite. Paul George has benefited greatly from the play style change, and Kristaps Porzingis, a.k.a. Godzingis, has set the NBA world on fire. Tristan, I'll start with you, and I know you want to talk about Paul George. What has impressed you so much about him and the new look Pacers?
Well, honestly, okay, we have to address Delvin yelling again. We're gonna get this man on the show sooner or later. I promise you. It's great the stuff that he says back here. But Paul George is leading the Pacers right now in points and rebounds at 23.8 and 8.8 a game, respectively. Over the last 4 or 5 games, I think, Paul George has been averaging like over 30 points a game. I think he's been averaging like a double-double. It's crazy the way the man's playing right now. The Pacers' offense in general is just really starting to come together. They've won 5 of their last 6. And, I mean, as you can see here, that's Chase Buttinger getting up for an alley-oop from George Hill. Like, this guy was voted, like, worst player in the league at the beginning of the year, but he's prospering in this system. And as a Pacers fan, it's great to see that things have finally come together this quickly, I guess. So I know we had some talk before the show, and if Paul George keeps up these numbers, he's going to be in that MVP race. I no longer sound crazy like I did on Tuesday.
Well, I wasn't here on Tuesday because I had some car issues, but I certainly would have backed you up on that comment because I know we talked about it before the season even started that Paul George, given the right situation, if this new play style change actually worked, that he would be an MVP candidate, because I feel like he'd be the most benefited because of the play style. He'd be able to attack more offensively and still be able to be great defensively. And that's really what we've seen through the first couple weeks. Are there any other storylines? I know that you went on Kobe Bryant a little bit earlier in the year, so.
Honestly, Kobe, that's something that's really sticking out to me right now because he hasn't played in the last 2 games because of the back issue. But when he was playing, it looked like it was the back, the legs, the knees, the eyes, the arms, the hands, the fingers all bothering him because he's not the same player he was. And I think that everyone was expecting if this was going to be Kobe's swan song, he was at least going to go out a valiant warrior like we've always known him. But I just think, age and, all the lingering injuries he's had these past 2 or 3 years finally catching up to him. He's just not the player he was, My dad also, he likes to talk about it, this is Willie Mays on the New York Mets level. Like, when a great player is that washed up and you can notice it, it's pretty bad. It's almost MJ on the Wizards, except MJ was still balling at that point. So, I don't know.
I mean, it's one of those things, you almost don't want to see it. For a lot of the time that Kobe Bryant has been in the NBA, at first I didn't like him, and then as he got older, I kind of grew to appreciate him. I didn't really like his demeanor when he was younger. He always seemed like just this really cocky, arrogant player, which he was. But then, as he got older into his 30s, he's really started to just be like, okay, like this dude is one of the better players of all time. He certainly deserves whatever he wants to, whatever he feels he needs. And so it's been a bit of a struggle to watch him play because this is one of the greats. And to see one of the all-time greats going down like this, I don't think it's very good. And now he says he might want to play after this year. He might not play this year or after this year. You never know. But on a more positive note, Kristaps Porzingis, who I know Delvin is absolutely infatuated with, he has absolutely set the world on fire for the NBA. As there's a shot of him shooting what was supposed to be a buzzer beater, ended up being overturned against the Orlando Magic the other night. And then now here's a tip slam over the Raptors where he just gets 3 dudes. This is Kristaps Porzingis. This is the guy that New York Knicks fans booed on draft night. And now he is absolutely balling for the Knicks. I mean, are the Knicks going to be legit if they keep this guy?
Honestly, you know what? I mean, as we can see, this is not his first putback dunk. I mean, the dude is headhunting out there on all these power forwards. So I honestly think you need to believe the hype on the Porzingis because I think he has that high ceiling he could reach. I think he's going to reach it. And I think once he does, if you can get Carmelo Anthony even being halfway the player he was in his prime, and be a little bit more of a distributor and involve his teammates and start actually running the triangle the way it's supposed to be run, as we've seen with the Bulls and the Lakers during their championship years. I think this team could be a sneaky team to get into the East and make some noise. Not go to the Eastern Conference Finals or win the finals or win it all per se, but they could sneak up on somebody like a Cleveland or Chicago and push them to a 6 or 7 game series, and then put the world on notice that the Knicks aren't fully back, but we're not a laughing stock and a joke anymore. All
right, now here's what I'm going to pose. I'm going to pose a question for you, and this might sound kind of crazy. It's only 2 weeks in the season. It could be a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. But let's say the Knicks aren't in a position to really compete for a title, but they could still compete for a lower-level seed in the East. Do you actually entertain the idea of potentially trading Carmelo Anthony with the new TV deal kicking in this offseason and opening up a bunch of money for the Knicks and building around Porzingis?
Ooh, that is a hard question because I actually saw a stat that the Knicks, ever since the Knicks and the Nuggets made the trade, the Knicks had all those assets and players.
Everybody, half their team.
To the Nuggets for Carmelo. The Knicks are actually 20 games below 500 over that span, while the Nuggets are 20 games above 500.
That's shocking because the Nuggets have been awful for the last couple years.
Yes, that's what I also thought. So that also says a lot about the Knicks and the talent they surrounded around with Carmelo Anthony. But at the same time, maybe the Knicks overthought who Carmelo Anthony was. I mean, he hasn't really attracted a big name free agent. He hasn't really been, sold into, playing defense, distributing while also still getting his 25 to 27 points per game. And I think maybe the Knicks got bit off a little bit more they could chew. The previous regime before Phil Jackson stepped in. Honestly, if this season doesn't look like it's going to be going anywhere, and the Phil Jackson, we all know the Zen master, he can get a little kooky sometimes. I could easily see Carmelo getting traded, and then next year they just build around Porzingis and try to bring in young talent as well and just start from scratch, maybe even get a new head coach, and then go from there.
Well, and I don't know about not to completely just to dismiss that point there, but I think Derek Fisher's a good fit because he knows the triangle. He can at least be player relatable, similar to Jason Kidd. But the reason why I bring up the idea of trading Carmelo is because he's, through his career, been a very inefficient scorer. And if you can get rid of that $20+ million cap hit and open up even more money with as much money that's going to be available next offseason, perhaps you can lure a Kevin Durant or a Russell Westbrook away from OKC, or get a big-name player to come and play aside Porzingis, or maybe you just get a bunch of draft picks and then build that way. But I certainly think with the potential Porzingis is showing, I think this kid's legit. This is one of the bigger kind of rookie just hypes I've seen since LeBron James really his rookie year. I don't think the hype's ever been this out of control since that year in 2003.
Oh yeah, I agree. I don't think. Sure, when Dwight came in and stuff, there was murmurs like, oh, this could be the next great center, but just the superstardom that is already around this kid, and the nicknames he's already getting and everything.
Godzingus.
Yeah, it's just unreal. And to think back in June when his name was initially called back in New York, Knicks fans were crying, booing him, saying, wow, we could have got so-and-so or such and such. And now they're already anointing him the next god of New York. So but that goes to show you how New Yorkers and Knicks fans are. They love you when they don't know you, but they actually hate you when they don't know you. But the second you show you can actually ball, you gain the respect and they love you. So
that's fans everywhere, Alec. Honestly, like you look back when Paul George was drafted to the Pacers, none of us knew who the man really was until we saw some highlights of him when we saw him playing a Pacers jersey alongside Danny Granger, and it was like, hey, he's actually pretty good. And now look.
Yeah,
that happens a lot with a lot of like lower, like some draft picks where people aren't really familiar, I guess. Yeah. And I don't think a lot of fans are ever going to be 100% satisfied unless they get like Karl Anthony Towns. Minnesota's like, whoa.
Yeah, they got Towns and Wiggins and
Levine.
Rubio and Levine, and they got a good squad out there in Minnesota.
Oh, yeah.
So now one of the biggest storylines, though, off the court has been the feud between Sacramento Kings head coach George Karl and his superstar center DeMarcus Cousins. Now, reports have surfaced that Cousins and Karl got into an argument after their loss to San Antonio, in which Cousins had a profanity-laced tirade towards his head coach. Now reports are saying that Kings GM Vlade Divac asked the players in a players-only meeting earlier this week if they wanted Karl to be fired. Of course, Divac denied that report, but it's still worth mentioning. So, Alec, who are you siding with here in this debacle?
Honestly, I'm going to have to go with Boogie Cousins. He's actually grown on me as a player. I know he went to UK, so yeah, those years don't count to me, but he's shown he's one of the best centers, if not one of the best offensive centers in the NBA today. And George Karl has also always had a reputation of just not being able to coach great players or star players. To his days back in Milwaukee, where he really shipped Ray Allen out of there pretty much. And then you look at him in Denver, Melo, Allen Iverson, they all eventually left. And there's also a common thing about his star players or better role players tweeting about a snake in the grass. Eventually it's coming back on George Karl. I think he wants to run the system his way. He thinks he has the notoriety of a Pat Riley or a Phil Jackson with no major playoff success and better off 0 rings. And I think that's where he's rubbing players the wrong way. You want all this respect, but where's the hardware to back up that respect that you want? And I think also this falls on the owner, Vivek, whatever his last name is. He's the guy who, initially when he bought the Kings, he said he was going to run 4-on-5 defense and have the fifth defender on the other end of the floor, basically cherry picking as you would see in NBA 2K16.
Box and none defense.
Yeah, I don't understand how a grown man actually thought that little, fifth grade mentality basketball was going to work with grown men. But hey, do you play? You got the money, not me. And I just don't think that they have really any direction. I honestly wanted them to get relocated to Seattle just because I want to see the Supersonics again, and I just don't think Sacramento is a good place for a basketball
team. Dude, NBA, moving back to Seattle. Seattle's clamoring for a team, man. But I will say this, too. The thing I see here the most that's most concerning, I think that you have to side with the players. That's how it's usually going to be. If this was a Phil Jackson, you might have an argument. But George Karl had a lot of really good teams that put up a lot of points but never had any playoff success, really. I think he's got over 1,100 wins, but as you said, no championships. Really couldn't get it done in the playoffs in general. But they certainly have had players like Rajon Rondo show up, and he's looking like his old self. He's actually looking good in this system, and that 1-5 pick and roll between him and Boogie Cousins is fantastic. They've got talent all around them whenever you look at their roster. So now the only issue is you got to find the right man to lead that locker room. I don't know if Karl is that guy because, like you said, he's always had these run-ins with his superstar players that are kind of a little bit hard-headed. And when you've got DeMarcus Cousins and Rajon Rondo on your team, it's not a good start for George Karl. And granted, he was trying to trade Boogie Cousins before he even actually got the job. And so I think that's something certainly to look out for. But this team's got a lot of talent. If they can get it to piece together, I think it could be good. But this could also be an absolute dumpster fire if they're not careful.
Yeah, I mean, you also don't want to waste prime years of DeMarcus Cousins because honestly, this guy's going to get you 25 and 10 plus every night for the next 4 to 5 years, plus that even. So you want to at least surround him with enough talent, and they already kind of have it, bits and pieces there. But you want to get it, the full squad together so you can actually make a push for a playoff spot in that tough Western Conference.
And certainly we'll just have to see what happens. I mean, like I said, this team's got a lot of talent, but there's a lot of turmoil too. And when there's smoke, there's fire. Okay. And that's certainly not a good start. I don't know what's going to happen with this, but certainly something to monitor going into the rest of this week. Unfortunately, we have to step away for another quick break, but when we come back, we'll discuss the college basketball season, which tips off tomorrow night, and then we'll finish it off with Shot Clock right here on Run the Play. Welcome back to Run the Play. It's almost time for college basketball season, and I know I'm especially excited for this upcoming season. Now, North Carolina comes in ranked number 1, with Kentucky being number 2. Maryland, Kansas, and Duke round out the top 5. Alec, so with Marcus Page breaking his hand and him being out about a month, how big of a loss is this for the Tar Heels?
I think it's going to be, a very big loss because, the first 2 months or so is all the big non-conference games and everything. Of course, we have the ACC and Big Ten Challenge coming up. So I think for North Carolina to lose their All-American, point guard, the leader on the floor and of this team, he's a senior leader, it's going to be significant. But at the same time, this team, for the first time in about maybe 4 or 5 years, is actually stacked with talent. And I think they'll be able to, tread water and, even probably exceed expectations without Marcus Page in the starting lineup for the first month of the season. And I see them maybe if they do drop a game, it will probably be one of their higher profile non-conference matchups. But they should right that ship quickly and still be in contention for a number 1 seed come tournament time.
Well, certainly this Carolina team has a lot of talent. Marcus Page is kind of the engine that makes everything go, and it's been that way since his freshman year when he was really given the keys early on. He's certainly a very versatile point guard that can score and facilitate. I think he could get a little bit better defensively, but that's just for another conversation. But in general, the fact that he broke his hand now, if you had to break your hand, is probably the best time, because even if you do lose one of these tough non-conference matchups, early on in the season, what you really need to do is you need to win in conference season.
Okay.
And he'll be back for conference season, and they got plenty of talent in the ACC. I mean, Duke's right there in the top 5 as well. So, I mean, there's 2 ACC teams in the top 5. That's where you really need to make your money, and really all you got to do is get in the tournament. It's not exactly like the college football playoff where you got to be top 4. All you got to be is top, 68?
Yeah.
So, I mean, all you got to do is just get in and anything can happen. So I don't think it'll hurt Carolina too much. Obviously, you want your point guard to be there for the entire year to develop chemistry. You got new players coming in. You've got just the team in general to start a new season. But I mean, under Roy Williams, they're gonna be fine. I think they'll have a pretty good year. I don't know if they end the season as far as when it comes to tournament time as the number 1 overall seed, but they'll certainly be in the top 10 to 15 for sure because they just have that much talent. But now you've also got teams like LSU with Ben Simmons coming on. IU's finally got all their players sorted out and ready to go. They're 15th in the preseason ranks. I forget where LSU is, but I know that you're excited about Ben Simmons.
Ben Simmons, yeah. I mean, he's an unproven rookie out of Australia, but they're already touting him as being the next big thing, and I know we've heard that before with Andrew Wiggins and stuff. And really all you can go off of Ben Simmons is YouTube videos and pretty much off-brand and one mixtapes. So you hope he actually, lives up to the hype and everything. But honestly, I haven't heard about a freshman incoming to LSU like this. I mean, before my time since Shaquille O'Neal. So hopefully he lives up to even a tenth of that type of hype and puts LSU basketball back on the map.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly someone to watch out for. He has developed that type of hype, that Porzingis level almost hype right now in the NBA, where he's just this highly touted freshman. Everybody wanted him. LSU somehow got him. Because when you think basketball, you don't think LSU, let's be honest. So, I mean, certainly he's going to have probably a pretty good year there as a freshman. Just being an IU fan, I'm really excited for the season, but I'm also a little bit pessimistic because of the fact that Crean has all of his talent that he wants. He's got all of his guards. He's got his big man that he wants. They've looked good in their exhibition games. Now, granted, they've been against pretty well no-names. In fact, one of those was against Bellarmine, which is a rival of USI's. But certainly IU has looked better in the preseason. They're running and gunning. They're shooting the lights out. Yogi Ferrell's been named one of the top 10 point guards in the country. James Blackman's one of the top 10 shooting guards in the country. They've got the talent, but it all comes down to coaching. And that's just something that, while Crean has done a fantastic job with the IU program and bringing them out of the abyss that they were in, he hasn't really won over myself and a lot of Hoosier Nation as far as when it comes to in-game coaching. He just seems like he never knows how to use his timeouts. And in games against like Syracuse, for instance, 2013, he can't figure out a simple 2-3 zone. I mean, does IU actually have any chance this year, or is it going to come down to Crean and whether he can actually coach or not?
I think, honestly, this year is going to be, Crean, it's time to show why we're paying you all this money and, why many people initially thought you would be the savior of this program and bring them back from, that dark abyss they were in when Calvin Sampson was the head coach.
Oh, gosh.
And, or as my dad likes to call him, he who shall not be named.
Yes.
But honestly, I think IU and Tom Crean finally have the players around them outside of all, the off seasons, DUIs and all that silly stuff. I think he has the team with the way he wants it, with a big man who he can throw into the post, and then that big man can kick it out to the shooters he has around him. This is very reminiscent of that 2012-2013 team that was so great and many people thought would win the national title that fell short to Syracuse, of course, because Crean couldn't figure out a 2-3 zone. Hopefully, if he does run into a 2-3 zone this season, he can actually conquer it and live up to expectations for once.
That's one thing I've never understood why teams don't just go against a 2-3 zone or even 1-3-1. Northwestern always seems to just confuse them with the 1-3-1 zone. But a lot of things you pointed out there is a lot of the off-the-court issues with Emmett Holt, Hunter Mosquera Perea, and you just had multiple players. I mean, Devin Davis, he's I don't remember if he's back yet or not, but I know that he had that brain injury. I think he actually ended up transferring. It's been one of those things where you can't really keep control of everything. And I know that you can't control what the kids do on the weekends. I mean, they're college students, been there, done that. Like it's one of those things you go out and celebrate, especially if you're an athlete.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to get a lot of attention. But at the same time, business is business. And when you're not producing wins on the court like the fan base wants you to because you've seen all the talent, there are no more excuses this year. He's got his roster the way he wants it. It's officially his roster. This is a lot like that 2013 team at Zeller and Watford and Oladipo and Yogi Ferrell and Jordan. You had everybody.
Yeah.
And so there's no more excuses in my opinion. And it's now or never. I know IU fans have been calling for his job. I have myself. But if it does come to tournament time, I just hope they don't run into any 2-3 zones. Maybe get to the Elite Eight or Final Four, and then his job should be a little bit safer. But I think Elite Eight's the lowest he can go. I think he has to get there because this has to be the year for him to win. And then now, Tristan, I know going back on the LSU point, you had the rankings right for LSU.
Yes, I do. I think in the AP Top 25 poll for the preseason men's basketball, LSU is sitting at 21st. And in the USA Today coaches poll, LSU is at 19. And then you mentioned Devin Davis. Actually went to my high school, Warren Central. Great player. He was actually dismissed from the team back in May for a marijuana possession charge.
That's right.
And he actually transferred to Odessa College in Texas to
That's
play
right.
there.
I remember that now that you say that was the other off-the-court issue that they had this year. Really a sad story of Devin Davis. Obviously had the brain injury, was in the hospital, was supposed to make a comeback, and then he got hit with the marijuana charge. Medical marijuana or not, I'm not sure what it was, but certainly you can't be having that stuff. So.
Oh, yeah.
Well, now to our favorite portion of the show, Shot Clock. Alec and I will have 24 seconds to talk about whatever sports topic we choose. Tristan will not be participating today, Two-Tim having to be Mr. Do-It-All in the control room back there, as he is also running graphics. So, Alec, you want to go ahead and get started?
Yeah.
All right. We'll go ahead and get this ready to go. As soon as Tristan's ready to go.
Okay, so guys, Ben Simmons, as we touched on earlier, he's an uber talented freshman out of Australia that everybody's talking about for LSU. Now, LSU basketball, I don't want you to get too caught up in the hype and everything. He's no Shaquille O'Neal by any means necessary. The kid is a nice wing player. He may lead you to the tournament berth, but don't expect a national title or even a Final Four this year. Sorry.
I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, he's going to be a talented player, but got to keep your expectations in check. This is LSU we're talking about, and it's basketball. All right, so I guess it's my turn? All right. Well, you're going to put me – there we go. We're just ready whenever you are. All right, so we touched on a little bit with IU. It said, no more excuses, Tom Crean. This is your roster. You've got the roster set up the way you want. Robert Johnson, James Blackman Jr., Yogi Ferrell, Nick Zeisloft, Thomas Bryant. You got everybody. It's time to win. Win or go out. Just leave because you have to get to at least the Elite Eight. It is no more time to go. It's time to win. Please, from an IU fan, please, just win. I threw an extra one in there late. I know, but, like, seriously, please, just win. That's all I want you to win. Just win, baby. So, well, Tristan, do you have any thoughts you want to tack on here at the end, even though you didn't get to participate in Shot Clock?
No.
No?
Go Eagles. That's the college basketball team I root for.
I didn't even hear what he said.
Go Eagles is what I said.
Go Eagles,
That's
USI.
the only team
Okay.
I
Well,
really
they do
root
get
for.
started this week, and they actually play tomorrow night. They have a couple games in Vegas.
They do, and we'll shamelessly plug right now live stats, and I think Jevin's out there doing radio, isn't he?
Yes, Jevin is out there doing radio,
Yeah.
90.7 FM, WPSR if you're in the Evansville area.
Yes, and live stats at GoUSIEagles.com.
And if you're not in the Evansville area and you want to listen, you can tune in at WPSRHD.com or on the radio TuneIn app. And I will be in Huntsville, Alabama this weekend for the women's college basketball game as they play the University of Alabama in Huntsville. That should be a fun game as they get their season tipped off as well. Same station, all that information.
And I'm just here so I don't get fined. So
He's just here so he doesn't get fined. So that's all for today's episode of Run the Play. For myself, Alec Bradley, a.k.a. Marshawn Lynch, and Tristan White in the control
Beach
room.
mode, boss.
As well as our entire staff who make this show possible. We would like to thank you for tuning in, and we hope to see you again on Tuesday night. Same time, same place for another episode of Run the Play.